People want to go on the internet and check out their friends, so why not build a website that offers that? Friends, pictures, profiles. I'm talking about taking the entire social experience of college and putting it online.
What's up, YouTube? Paul Fadika here, and today I want to talk about the founding of Facebook. Now, the founding of Facebook has been dramatized and turned into a movie about 8 years ago called The Social Network. It's a great movie. I just watched it for the first time a couple weeks ago, and it made me think about the founding of Facebook and all the lessons that you can learn from all the various actors. So my first lesson is going to be how to not found a company. You do not want to found a company like how the Winklevoss Twins tried to found their site, Harvard Connection. They changed it to Connect You or something stupid, some stupid name like that. Their approach was the same approach I see from a lot of failed attempts at creating tech companies. You see it advertised in a lot of get-rich kind of schemes. The pitch is always the same. It always goes something like, hey, you might not have any technical knowledge, you might not know how to code, but you're just gonna find and pay a guy who's gonna code the site for you. You'll pay him a couple $1,000, like here you go, and then you'll just be raking in the millions after he makes the site for you. That is never how it goes. Because if you're not a coder yourself, you can't judge other people's code. You're not gonna know if they're giving you great code or complete crap. So the Winklevoss Twins and their third buddy, I forget his name, thought that they could just find a coder, throw some money at him, be like, oh great, thanks for making this website for us, bye-bye, we're gonna collect our millions of dollars now, thank you. Which is never how it goes down when you're making a tech startup. If one of your co-founders doesn't have technical knowledge, you are dead in the water. Like, you have zero chances of success. A non-coder can't hire a good coder because he's not gonna be able to judge it because he doesn't know if he's getting crap or if he's being dicked around or if he's getting good quality code or not. Before they approached Mark Zuckerberg and asked him to create their social media site for them, they'd already gone through 2 different programmers at Harvard, both of which ended up going nowhere. And on top of that, the Winklevoss Twins way overestimated the value of their idea. To create a successful business, the formula is 1% idea, 99% execution. Their idea was essentially, hey, let's rip off Friendster and MySpace, but the difference is that our site is going to be exclusive to Harvard students or exclusive to university students. That's it. And they needed to focus on their business to the exclusion of everything else. Like, you can't be training to race crew in the Olympics and expect that you're gonna make a successful tech startup. Like, oh, here you go guys, here's your money, I'm gonna go off, be in the Olympics, bye. I'll be back to collect my millions in a couple years after you guys are all done making it for me. That's not how a tech startup, that's not how any business startup ever works. And to me, the idea that the Winklevoss Twins were able to sue Facebook and actually win for, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of shares in Facebook stock, that's freaking crazy to me. That's just crazy. But I guess it worked out for them because now they're like Bitcoin billionaires or something or other. And the second mistake that I wanted to talk about was choosing your co-founders carefully. So Mark Zuckerberg's first co-founder was Eduardo Saverin, who in the movie The Social Network is basically the main character. Mark Zuckerberg is portrayed as this evil, manipulative, weird, creepy kind of guy who makes everything happen, but Eduardo Saverin is the nice, lovable guy who's just kind of along for the ride. And throughout the whole movie, throughout the whole story, he just ends up looking like a complete victim who is just letting other people push him around and go this way and that way. And that's because the movie The Social Network was based on a book that was based on Eduardo Saverin's own first-hand account of the founding of Facebook. So there's a lot of bias there. In real life, Eduardo Saverin is a loser and a crook, and Mark Zuckerberg got screwed over by being involved with him at all in the beginning. So Mark Zuckerberg and Eduardo Saverin were rooming together in Harvard. So when Mark Zuckerberg wanted to create Facebook, he approached Eduardo Saverin for some initial investment, and Eduardo Saverin gave him $19,000 for 30% of the company, taking on the role of chief financial officer. And Mark Zuckerberg originally approached him because he knew that Eduardo Saverin's family had a lot of money because they made a lot of money doing insider trading on oil futures in Brazil, where apparently insider trading is not illegal. And there was rumors that Eduardo was connected to the mafia or whatever. And as CFO, Eduardo Saverin was a complete and utter failure. The movie tries to make Mark Zuckerberg look like a bad guy for cutting Eduardo out, but the fact is that Eduardo was a shitty co-founder, and that if Eduardo had remained at Facebook, no one ever would have heard of Facebook. It would have been a total flop, it would have died, and something else would be the main social network everyone uses right now, like, I don't know, Snapchat, Instagram, MySpace, whatever. So Mark Zuckerberg was the technical guy who would build the website, which he did, whereas Eduardo Saverin would be the business guy who would run the business end of things. So he would incorporate the business, he'd find investors for Facebook, and he'd come up with a workable business model for Facebook. none of which he did. So Eduardo was so dumb, he founded Facebook as an LLC in Florida. Now, if you know anything about business, which he should because he's a freaking Harvard Business School student, that he needs to found his corporation as a Delaware-based C corporation if he wants to get any real investors. So the fact that he created it as an LLC shows me that either A, he's a complete moron, or B, he never believed in Facebook to begin with and was just planning on screwing Zuck over for whatever he could get out of him. So when Facebook finally did find its first real investor, Peter Thiel, who invested $500,000. They had to reincorporate as a C Corp based out of Delaware, then go back and buy the Florida-based LLC. So in order to accept the $500,000 investment in Facebook that Peter Thiel was offering, they needed Eduardo Saverin's signature because he was a 30% co-owner of the original Facebook company. And he dicked Mark around the whole time, seriously endangering the ability of Facebook to survive and finance itself. On top of that, he wanted to plaster Facebook with crappy banner ads, which would have been a horrible idea. He went behind Mark's back and ran his own advertisements on Facebook, advertising his own company that he had founded without Mark Zuckerberg. And when the company moved from Harvard dorm rooms over to California, Eduardo didn't even go with. He didn't drop out of Harvard. He actually finished his Harvard degree. He went to New York City to intern instead. And that just says to me that Eduardo never believed in the success of Facebook. If he thought Facebook was going to be successful, was going to be a huge billion-dollar company, he would have been all over that and totally involved in the day-to-day operations. Instead, he had no idea what was even going on at Facebook or how the site even worked. Because when you're part of a startup, you got to put all your eggs in one basket. You can't hedge your bets. You can't try multiple projects. You got to be focused on success at the one thing you do best. So not only did he screw up the founding of the company, he also pulled the company in a crappy direction, and he was interfering with the business's day-to-day activities. So in order to get around Eduardo Saverin, Peter Thiel, the investor, and Mark Zuckerberg came up with a plan where they would dilute Eduardo Saverin's shares without him knowing. And Eduardo was so not paying attention to anything going on at Facebook, he totally fell for it. He essentially signed away his 30% share in the company without even reading the contract or having a lawyer look at it for him. And this is the CFO, who's a Harvard business student. He didn't even realize for 3.5 months after it happened how badly he'd been diluted. As far as I'm concerned, Mark Zuckerberg is the hero of this story, and Eduardo Saverin is the villain. So Eduardo Saverin ended up suing Facebook. He ended up getting a couple $2 billion in restitution. And then after he gets the shares, he leaves the United States, becomes a Singapore citizen so that he doesn't have to pay $700 million in capital gains tax to the United States government. Now, if that doesn't sound like a crook to you, I don't know what is. The fact that he became a billionaire basically by accident is just crazy and mind-blowing to me. The third lesson comes from Mark Zuckerberg himself, which is have a lean startup. So it's incredible to me that Mark Zuckerberg actually coded and released Facebook in only a matter of a month and a half all by himself. Like, that's just mind-blowing to me. But that's how successful entrepreneurs are. You have to be frugal and work within the constraints of your very limited resources. And it's not about being perfect, it's about getting it done. And if you go to the Facebook headquarters, they literally have that written on the walls. So when you're starting a company, don't worry about the name or patents or copyright or the business model or anything like that. Just come up with a killer product. Come up with a killer product as fast as you can, as cheaply as you can, and put it out there, go get the feedback and see how people react, and then go from there. Because that's how Facebook started, that's where it got where it was. The LLC business around Facebook wasn't even founded until Facebook had been around for like 3 months. So if you have an opportunity, don't overthink it, don't overanalyze it. You gotta jump and you gotta act on it. So when you're founding a company, you gotta be very careful who your co-founders are, and you wanna vest your co-founders' shares. So they have to stay with the company and be actively engaged with it in order to get their ownership stake in the company. They can't just take 30% of the company like Eduardo did and then dip out to New York City and do nothing useful for you. And the fourth and final lesson I wanted to talk about was Mark Zuckerberg's shitty approach to conflict. So Mark's a nerd, he's introverted, he's not very good at communicating with other people or socially interacting with other people. So when he ran into problems with the Winklevoss Twins and with Eduardo Saverin, rather than being honest, upfront, and open, he went around behind their backs to avoid conflict because that was what was easier for him. Instead of just confronting someone and telling them how it is and making it simple and having the fight done, one and done, you pretend to do what they want, you pretend to tell them what they want to hear, but then behind their back, you screw them over. And Mark did that to both the Winklevoss Twins and Eduardo Saverin, which ended up costing him and his investors billions of dollars. Not that he really cares, because he's got billions of dollars to throw around anyway, buying stuff like Oculus Rift and WhatsApp. And because Mark Zuckerberg is such an awkward person, because he's such a poor communicator, he essentially allowed his critics to define him, to win the public relations battle, and to create this narrative that he is a shady and little creepy individual who steals other people's ideas and screws over his co-founders.
I'm so proud of you, Lucius. So, how much did we make?
This is my business. Security!
You're Zuckerberging me?
I was Zuckerberging people before Zuckerberg's balls dropped.
When in reality, the story of Mark Zuckerberg, the story of the founding of Facebook, is about a driven young individual creating this breakthrough product that just blows everybody out of the water and grows at this incredible rate that nobody saw coming. And then after the fact, after being successful, getting sued by essentially a couple parasites who were just trying to take him for whatever money they thought they could get out of him. That's the real story. That's what really happened. And if Zuckerberg was better at talking to people, that's the story he should be going out and telling everybody. So for the Winklevoss Twins, he should have just gone to them and said, hey, I'm not interested in working for you. I'm not interested in developing a site for you, but I am going to develop my own site. And as I already said before, they were no competition for him. They were nothing to worry about. So he didn't need to keep leading them on for like a month and a half, pretending like he was developing a site for them, when in reality he was just developing his own site, the Facebook. If he would have done that, they would have had no legal ground to stand on and sue him, because they didn't have him sign a non-compete. Their idea wasn't patented. So why can't Mark Zuckerberg use their idea for free? And for Eduardo Saverin, Mark should have just said, hey buddy, this business relationship we're having is not working out. You're not the right person for my team, and I'm going to need you to leave. But I'm going to work out a deal with you because you do own 30% of the company. I want to work out a deal with you that's fair and equitable. And he probably would have got those shares back for only a couple $1 million instead of a couple $1 billion. All right, thanks for listening to my rambling again today, all you people out there on YouTube. Go ahead and click the subscribe button down below, and I will see you guys again tomorrow for another video. Peace out.
My head underwater.